In 1912, a German archaeologist named Ludwig Borchardt pulled a piece of limestone from the sand at Amarnat. It weighed 3.5 kilograms. He photographed it, logged it, and wrote a single line to a colleague. Description is useless. You have to see it. Since that moment, this bust has appeared on magazine covers, exhibition posters, and tattoos on 6 continents. It became the default image when the human mind reaches for the word beauty and points it at the ancient world. Symmetrical. Flawless. Eternal, but here's the detail no one mentions: the left eye is empty. The inlay was never inserted. The sculptor Thutmose abandoned the work unfinished. Why? Unknown. Historians call it an insignificant workshop detail. We call it the first symptom, because Nefertiti is a story about disappearance. Not metaphorical. Literal. At some point between the 12th and 14th year of Akhenaten's reign, she simply ceases to exist in the official record. Cartouches, chiseled out. Images, destroyed. The name, erased 3,000 years ago. Someone worked very hard to make sure we would never ask the right questions. Today, we ask them, because in 2010, the Journal of the American Medical Association published a study applying full genome DNA analysis to the mummies of the 18th dynasty. And in 2017, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology released findings that permanently redrew the genetic map of ancient Egypt. For a century, archaeology argued about Nefertiti using stone and papyrus. Nobody checked the biology until now. To understand Nefertiti's disappearance, you first have to understand the system she existed inside. The 18th dynasty was not simply a royal family. It was a closed genetic system. Deliberately closed. Egyptian pharaohs did not intermarry with outsiders. Taking a foreign princess as a wife, acceptable. Sending an Egyptian princess to a foreign king, never. Amenhotep III stated this explicitly when the Babylonian king requested his daughter. From time immemorial, no daughter of the king of Egypt is given to anyone. This was not a policy. It was theology. Royal blood was considered a literally divine substance. To dilute it was to desecrate it. To preserve it in purity was to sustain the cosmic order, Ma'at. In practice, this meant marriage within the family. Brothers wed sisters. Fathers wed daughters. Uncles wed nieces. Generation after generation after generation. Biology has a precise term for this. The inbreeding coefficient is a numerical measure of the probability that 2 identical alleles in an organism's genome were inherited from a single common ancestor. For a child born of a brother and sister, that coefficient is 0.25. For the offspring of 2 such pairs, it compounds. Recessive mutations that remain hidden in a normal population begin to express. Genetic vulnerabilities accumulate across generations, invisible until they are not. The 2010 JAMA study analyzed the DNA of 9 mummies from the 18th dynasty, including Tutankhamun. The findings were unambiguous: skeletal pathologies, immunodeficiency conditions, multiple concurrent infections. The genetic foundation had narrowed to the point where resilience was literally bred out of the bloodline. This is biological debt. And the 18th dynasty was paying it down through the entire Amarna period. Nefertiti entered this system as its queen. But who she was genetically, that is the question no stone could answer. In 2017, the Max Planck Institute published the first large-scale genomic study of ancient Egyptians, using mummies from Abusir el-Melek spanning from the New Kingdom through the Roman period. The conclusion was unexpected for the general public. For geneticists, it was not. Ancient Egyptians were genetically closer to the populations of the Levant and Anatolia than to modern inhabitants of Egypt. Modern Egyptians carry significantly more sub-Saharan African DNA than their pharaonic ancestors, approximately 8% more, reflecting later migration waves that had nothing to do with the civilization that built the temples. This is not a political statement. These are data points. Now, Nefertiti. Her name in Egyptian means the beautiful one has come. An epithet for someone who arrived from elsewhere. The sources identify her as the daughter of a nobleman, likely the high priest or senior official who later became pharaoh himself. Her wet nurse bore a Semitic name. Some researchers, including Alice Arnaud, have pointed toward a possible Mitanni origin. If Nefertiti came from Mitanni, or from a family with Levantine roots, the Max Planck data places her in a very specific genetic landscape. Not exotic. Not alien to Egypt. On the contrary, entirely typical of the New Kingdom elite, which was genetically aligned with that same Near Eastern ancestral substrate. The bust, with its idealized, almost European features, is the work of a court sculptor creating an image for eternity. The high cheekbones, the elongated neck, the symmetrical gaze, this is the Amarna artistic canon. Not a photograph. The biological substrate beneath the golden mask was something else entirely. And now, the central point. The DNA analysis of 2010 established Tutankhamun's parentage with a precision no inscription can match. His mother was the mummy designated in the scientific literature as the younger lady. KV-35YL. Discovered in the KV-35 cache in 1898 by Victor Loret. She was found face down, deliberately mutilated, chest opened, left arm broken off, face damaged. Unmistakable evidence of deliberate post-mortem desecration. The DNA was unambiguous. The younger lady was a full sibling of Akhenaten. Not a daughter of Nefertiti. A sister of Akhenaten. Tutankhamun, son of the pharaoh's incestuous union with his own sister. The mother of the god on earth was a woman whose name was erased so thoroughly that we still do not know what she was called. And Nefertiti? Nefertiti gave Akhenaten 6 daughters. Not one son. In a closed genetic system where succession required a male heir, this was not merely a personal failure. It was a systemic verdict. Let us inventory what we know about the physical condition of the people surrounding Nefertiti. Tutankhamun. The 2010 JAMA study. CT scanning and DNA analysis produced the following. Bone necrosis in the left foot. Cleft palate. Club foot, talipes echinovarus. Multiple fractures that failed to heal correctly. Positive results for malaria DNA, several strains simultaneously. Kolar disease, degeneration of the navicular bone of the foot. This is not a young pharaoh who died in an accident. This is a human being whose body was compromised at a fundamental level before he ever ascended the throne at the age of 9. This is where the 130 canes become relevant. Inside Tutankhamun's tomb, archaeologists found approximately 130 walking sticks and staffs. Some were ceremonial, symbols of authority, as expected. But a significant number showed evidence of actual use, wear on the handles, abrasion on the tips. Several had been individually fitted to his height. This was not a ceremonial collection. This was a medical history written in wood and ivory. The man depicted as a young god standing in his chariot could not walk without support. Now consider those we cannot scan. 6 daughters of Nefertiti and Akhenaten. The fates of several are documented. Meriteten became the great royal wife of her own father after Nefertiti's disappearance. Akhenaten married Tutankhamun, her half-brother, and lost 2 children. The 2 stillborn daughters of Tutankhamun and Akhenaten were found inside his tomb. Mummified. One, approximately 5 months of gestation. The other, full term, roughly 9 months. CT analysis revealed in both infants congenital abnormalities consistent with elevated inbreeding coefficients. Akhenaten was Akhenaten's daughter. Tutankhamun was his son by a sister. Their children were born of a union in which both parents carried a nearly identical genetic burden. The result, 2 small mummies in wooden coffins. The final entry in 150 years of blood purification. Now return to Nefertiti. Around year 12 of Akhenaten's reign, she vanishes. The last dated image of her is from approximately 1336 BCE. Then, silence. Some researchers propose death from the epidemic that swept through Egypt in this period. Others suggest disgrace. Others have advanced the theory that she changed her name, became the co-regent Nefertiti, and possibly the regent who guided the young Tutankhamun. We do not know where her body is. We do not know her birth name. We do not know the reason for her disappearance. What we do know is this: the woman whose face became the symbol of Egyptian civilization was removed from the official record with a methodical thoroughness that required both intention and resources. This was not forgetting. This was work. After the death of Tutankhamun, his widow Akhenaten wrote a letter. It has survived. It was addressed to Suppiluliuma I, king of the Hittites, one of the most powerful monarchs of his age, an enemy of Egypt. She wrote the following: "My husband has died. I have no son. You, they say, have many sons. If you give me one of your sons, he will become my husband. I will never take a servant of mine and make him my husband. I am afraid. This is not diplomacy. This is desperation." The great queen of Egypt, daughter of a pharaoh, widow of a pharaoh, writing to a Hittite king to send her a man. Because in the largest empire on the Nile, there was no longer a suitable male heir from the ruling bloodline. The closed genetic system had consumed itself. Suppiluliuma did not believe her at first. He asked for confirmation. Akhenaten wrote again. He sent his son, Prince Sananza. Prince Sananza died at the Egyptian border. Murdered. By whom, it is understood. Horemheb, the military commander. A man without a single drop of royal blood, who recognized that a power vacuum is filled by whoever moves first. Akhenaten married an old man, likely in his 70s. Probably her grandfather or great-uncle. This is the last mention of her in any source. Then, silence. Her cartouches inside ice tomb were chiseled out and replaced with the name of another woman. Another disappearance. The 18th dynasty does not end with a battle, an invasion, or a revolution. It ends with 2 dead infants in the tomb of a boy pharaoh and a letter from a woman who was afraid. Horemheb understood something essential about power. Stone is not merely a material. In Egyptian theology, a name carved in stone sustained the existence of the soul in the afterlife. To destroy the name was to kill the person a second time. Permanently. Damnatio memoriae. The condemnation of memory. Horemheb dismantled the Amarna period systematically. The temples of Aten were broken down. The blocks were used as filler inside the new pylons at Karnak, buried where no one would ever see them. The names of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, Tutankhamun, and I were struck from the official king lists. By the time the Ramesside chronicles were composed, the 18th dynasty ended with Amenhotep III. 20 years of history, declared non-existent. It almost worked. Tutankhamun's tomb was found in 1922 not because anyone was looking for it. It was found by accident, because later construction crews had buried its entrance under rubble. Horemheb had not destroyed it, he had simply forgotten it. Or judged it too minor to bother with. Nefertiti was not as fortunate. Her tomb has not been found. Several candidate sites exist. Tomb KV-21 contains 2 unidentified female burials whose partial DNA shows possible alignment with Tutankhamun's maternal line, which could theoretically indicate his mother or grandmother. But no definitive identification has been made. In 2015, Nicholas Reeves proposed that Nefertiti's tomb lay behind the walls of Tutankhamun's own burial chamber, in hidden rooms sealed since antiquity. Radar scanning produced inconclusive results. The question remains open. The body of the most recognizable woman of the Bronze Age has not been found. Her DNA has not been analyzed. Her true origin has not been established. And until it is, the bust in Berlin remains a mask with no verified face behind it. Return to the empty eye. Sculptor Thutmose never finished the work. The workshop was abandoned abruptly, most likely when the court evacuated Amarna after Akhenaten's death. Among the objects left behind were dozens of unfinished sculptures and plaster casts of real human faces, likely reference models for official portraits. Among them was the mask of an elderly man. Realistic wrinkles. Bags under the eyes. Downturned corners of the mouth. No idealization whatsoever. A real face. Left behind. This is what existed outside the canon. Nefertiti lived inside a system that demanded perfection in stone and concealed biological reality behind ceremonial reliefs. She bore 6 children and gave the throne no heir. She vanished at the precise moment the system began to fracture. Her claimed maternity of the dynasty's final pharaoh turned out to be a fiction. DNA pointed unambiguously to another woman. Unnamed. Mutilated. Deliberately forgotten. The golden mask was never the story. Horemheb worked with a chisel. Successors rewrote the chronicles. 3,000 years later, tourists photograph themselves beside the Berlin bust without knowing they are looking at state propaganda. But here is what proved more durable than stone. The DNA inside the bones of the younger lady preserved the truth about who gave birth to Tutankhamun. The genetic analysis of the royal mummies preserved the truth about the diseases that official iconography concealed. The ancestry data preserved the truth about where these people actually came from. Biology turned out to be the more durable record. A chisel can destroy a cartouche in an hour. A recessive mutation encoded in the genome survives 30 generations. The real history of the 18th dynasty was never in the gold of the burial masks. It was in the bone necrosis. In the stillborn infants. In the letter from a woman who was afraid. In the unnamed mummy lying face down in a tomb cache. Nefertiti did not disappear. She was made to disappear. The difference is everything. And until her DNA is identified, the story of her erasure remains not a closed case, but an open investigation. Biology has not yet delivered its final verdict.